Hi guys, I'm Sean. This is Alyssa. Gus is in our hearts, and this is Internet Rabbit Hole Daily. All right, folks, we are checking out some more geopolitical stuff. We've had a few people comment and saying, enough with the trailers. We want you to check out some other stuff. Of course, what you'd really like us to check out would be full movie reactions. Oh, that's coming, guys. These things take time. I'm sorry. We're in sort of this weird kind of busy phase right now, but we do have some time to check out some new Think School videos. And so we actually had the creator of Think School reach out to us in the comments and say, keep up the good work, guys. I'm glad you're checking out my videos. So we're going to continue to do that. And this one looks very interesting. So it says how RBI strategy will kill the US dollar dominance. And so I suspect RBI must stand for, it must be some sort of Indian organization that handles their finances or handles the currency market or whatever. And it looks like they've got a strategy to kill the U.S. dollar's dominance. Okay, well,
that would be hard.
I would think so, you know, because at least as long as I can remember, that's been the standard. The American dollar it used to be the gold standard, and then it was like now the American dollar is the standard. So I'm gonna say
dominance,
it's
like just the dollar doing well. The pounds. Aren't pounds worth more than US dollar?
Well, it's yes, but they're sort of different denominations, so we're not comparing sort of apples to apples sort of thing.
I know, but overall, like
I guess the question is their spending power equal to or better than? But I think what they're showing here is a real rupee versus dollar. I mean, geez, like I said, the rest of the world always measures their currency against the U.S. dollar. So I'm very curious to see here what India has up their sleeve. And of course, in Canada here, our dollar is worth less than the American dollar. I do remember a time in my youth, though, for like, you know, a couple of weeks there where it was actually worth more than the American dollar. So,
well, that's crazy.
But at this point, I think it's worth what, like 75 cents to the dollar, something like that.
Around that, yeah.
Like, all right.
Move, the Reserve Bank of India has issued a circular for international trade settlement in rupee.
The Indian rupee trade could be an alternative. India and Russia can trade without the US dollar.
The system could help India promote its export and facilitate trade with countries under sanction.
I have to watch a video.
So the RBI is deploying Economics 101, increasing the demand for rupee. Under this new system, foreign traders will require more rupees, and more demand equals more value.
So they're going to require the use of the rupee, I guess?
On 11th of July 2022, the Reserve Bank of India made a very, very bold announcement whereby domestic traders could settle their imports and exports with Indian rupees. And this move of taking the INR global is a very, very big deal because it is set to help India do trade directly with Russia without depending on the American banks. So on one side, while this could push us into new horizons of world trade with Russia, Iran and Venezuela, on the other,
when's this video from?
This is just fairly recent, so I think this is within the last couple of weeks here. But it sounds like maybe a lot of this business had been done with the American dollar, and through, therefore, American banks, or at least the American banks would have to be involved in some capacity. And I think what I'm hearing here is that now we can use the rupee instead of the American dollar, and it sort of cuts out that portion of the transaction.
Both with the US and
well, I think what he's saying here is that Indian business people have still used the American dollar to trade, say between when they're doing business with other countries and this and that, and I think they're pushing to have it be using rupees instead of American dollars.
They actually use American dollars, like they convert their rupees to US dollars.
That's sort of what I'm getting the sense of. Of course, you guys are going to know better than we are. Let us know in the comments.
So this is not just a major move from the economic standpoint, but also from the geopolitical standpoint. So the question is, what is RBI's strategy behind bringing this system? How will this help us trade with Russia and Iran in spite of the Western opposition? How will this help the economy of India? And most importantly, what are the study materials to help you understand this system better? This video is brought to you by Multiple, but more on this at the end of the video.
See, I'm looking for the Canadian dollar. I don't see it.
The first thing we need to understand is why is RBI suddenly allowing international trades to be settled in INR? Well, this is because when Russia invaded...
It almost seems like perhaps they were not even allowing people to do the trade in rupees. So INR, as I understand, for maybe Indian national rupees, something like that. So it seems like before people, even if they wanted to use rupees, they kind of couldn't. So this is going to be a big change. Yeah, that's the sense I'm getting anyways.
Ukraine, the American sanctions removed Russia from something called the SWIFT network. And this has brought several trade challenges for India and many other countries. Now, to understand this RBI strategy, we first have to understand how does the existing SWIFT network work and how have the US and Europe very cleverly bullied the world trade with sanctions in the name of world peace. So let's understand how does the SWIFT network work. You see guys, the SWIFT network usually involves 6 different entities. These are the Indian trader, Indian Bank, American Bank 1, American Bank 2, Foreign Bank and Foreign Trader. Now the highlight over here is that the Indian Bank will have an account in the American Bank where it has its money in dollars. Similarly, the Sri Lankan Bank will have a bank account in American Bank 2 where again they will store their money in US dollars. This is because only US banks can hold dollars. This is the reason why you will see that almost all the banks in the world have an account with a US bank, wherein they have their money stored in dollars. So let's say Reliance wants to import minerals worth 1 crore rupees from Sri Lanka. So what Reliance would do is, they would give the Indian bank 1 crore Indian rupees and ask them to pay the same amount in dollars to the Sri Lankan trader's account in the US. So now that Indian bank has 1 crore rupees in its Indian account, it would send a message to its dollar account in America to send 1 crore worth of dollars to Sri Lanka's bank's dollar account in the US. In this case, assuming 80 rupees to dollar to be the exchange rate, $125,000 would be transferred from the Indian account in the US to the Sri Lankan account in the US. And now that the Sri Lankan bank has $125,000 in the US account, it would pay the Sri Lankan trader the equivalent of...
There's got to be a better way.
So this was this was just trading India to Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Not even like India to the US.
Yeah.
Like this was just... You'd think that they could have...
They would use
not
sort of the
had to
rupee,
use
but
US dollars.
You know, it must be something to do with kind of the stability of it, perhaps the fact that it is so entrenched around the world, the fact that everyone, from the sounds of it, sort of needs to have an American bank account if they're dealing in
I don't know.
dollars.
Can't you just always just the bank can just do the conversion of whichever currency? Like, couldn't they just have an Indian bank to?
Well, what they're
or they'd have to have a Sri Lankan bank.
He's saying that only the American banks
Or
can
wait,
hold the dollars. So it's
is Sri Lanka rupees?
No. I suspect Sri Lanka would have its own foreign currency, which I'm not entirely sure.
I want to know what the Sri Lankan currency is. Couldn't you just go rupees straight to?
Clearly not.
Currency?
Everything's going through these American banks, and no doubt the American bankers are loving it because every little, extra little fee they can take and every little service charge, they're going to do it. Jeez,
that.
Let's get some hair there. Let me get that away from you. All right.
Account in Sri Lanka. So assuming the exchange rate to be 350 between dollars and Sri Lankan rupee, the Sri Lankan bank would pay 4 crore 37 lakh 50,000 Sri Lankan rupees to the Sri Lankan trader. So here, as you can see, this system requires a lot of communication between different banks. It needs a lot of calculation to be done due to fluctuation in exchange rates, and more importantly, it requires a complex network of thousands of banks from all across the world. Therefore, it is managed by a highly sophisticated messaging network called the SWIFT network. And this network is very, very tightly controlled by both the US and Europe. And the catch over here is that more than 50% of the international trades are done through the SWIFT messaging system alone. So the question is, what is the problem with the system and why is the RBI trying to build an alternative? Well, there are 3 major problems with this system. Firstly, since this entire system is controlled by Europe and the US, if they do not like you, they will just impose sanctions and cut you off from the SWIFT network. So in short, they will not let you trade through the SWIFT system. And this is what the West did to Iran. Secondly, not letting you trade could still be acceptable. But since US has control over all the country's dollar accounts, they could even freeze your money that is kept in their US bank accounts. And this is what happened to Russia, wherein after the Ukraine invasion, $300 billion of Russian foreign reserves have been frozen.
Because they were in American banks,
I'm wondering
I
how
guess.
does China trade? They must not use these American banks. stuff, right? Because that would give the Americans way too much control.
That's a good question. I'm not sure how China, factors into this.
Not use its own
or
money
how they
to
do
trade.
things.
We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen.
The pressure on Russia and on Vladimir Putin is growing. New sanctions on its central bank just today.
The sanctions against the Central Bank of Russia, which were enacted on Monday morning, are probably the single largest sanctions action in modern history.
And lastly, this system is very, very costly. Since all 4 entities involved in the system take a commission, the cost of transferring money itself costs you anywhere between 1 to 5%. So on a transfer of say
That's
120 crores, if the banks add a 3% exchange rate
way
margin,
too much.
that means they would charge you 3.6 crore rupees just of the exchange rate. So all of this put together, even if India wants to trade with Russia, even though we do not have anything to do with the Russia-Ukraine invasion, just because the West does not like it, we are not able to trade with Russia with ease. And what's even worse is that it's not like the Europeans have stopped trading with Russia, because they realized that if they do not get Russian gas, their economy will fail.
Yeah,
so you know what?
Energy
They have
crisis
made
in Europe
exceptions such that some Russian accounts will be allowed to operate so that Europe can still use Russian gas and at the same time be the moral police of the world.
Somewhere Europe has to grow out of the mindset that Europe's problems are the world's problems, but the world's problems are not Europe's problems. Tell me if buying Russian gas is not funding the war? I mean, why is it's only Indian money and oil coming to India which funds, but it's not gas coming to Europe which funds? If countries in Europe and the West and the United States are so concerned, why don't they allow Iranian oil to come into the market? Why don't they allow Venezuelan oil to come into the market?
Asking some tough questions.
This is how the West is using its so-called supremacy to hinder other countries' trade in the name of moral policing and world peace. And this is where, ladies and gentlemen, RBI's move comes in. Here's where India has come up with an alternative system to bypass this system and still do business with foreign countries. And they did that by allowing international trade to be done in Indian currency. Now, if you look at the RBI notification, they say that this can be done through something called Vostro account. So the question over here is, what is Vostro account? How will this transaction actually happen? And if executed, how will this benefit India? Well, to understand the system, let's say a Russian company wants to trade with an Indian named Akshay Kumar. And he wants to do that without going to SWIFT. So now the Russian company will have a Russian bank account which has money stored in rubles. And this Russian bank will also have an account in India where they would store the money in Indian rupees in an Indian bank. And this account is what is called as Vostro account. So basically, it's a bank's bank account held by a foreign bank. In this case, it's a Russian bank's bank account held in the Indian bank.
Wasn't
so
this
now,
already?
If Akshay Kumar wants to import,
didn't this already exist? Like, you'd think this would already exist.
No, maybe, but it wasn't the common practice at the very least.
Sunflower oil from a Russian company, here's how it will work out. Firstly, Akshay Kumar pays 5 crore Indian rupees to the Russian bank account in the Indian bank, which means the Vostro account will get 5 crore Indian rupees. Then, since the Russian bank has 5 crore Indian rupees in its Indian account, assuming exchange rate to be 1.5, this Russian bank will use its account in Russia to pay the sunflower oil trader a converted sum of 3.33 crore ruble. That is how the Russian trader gets 3.33 crore ruble in his account. Now, mind you, this would also involve commissions from both the Indian bank and the Russian bank. So,
well, the ruble would be the Russian currency, and then crore stands for 100,000. So.
Well, why aren't they just saying 3.33 ruble?
Well, crore means to 100,000. So 3.33 100,000 rubles, as I understand it.
Oh, okay.
So in reality,
it's just a way for
it just means 100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's in rubles.
Crore ruble minus commission charges in his account. Similarly, this Vostro account will also be used for exports. So let's say a Russian company wants to import tea from India. So the Russian company would pay 100,000 Russian rubles to the Russian bank. Then, since the Russian bank has
they said 100,000 there
Vostro
now.
account in India,
Ruble.
that Vostro account would pay
Not
1,50,000 Indian rupees to the tea company. This is again assuming an exchange rate of 1.5 for simplification of calculation. So just like last time, the commissions will be deducted on both sides and the remaining amount will be transferred. This is how the transactions are expected to change format once this system is brought into play. Now the question over here is, if this system is brought into play, what are the advantages that India will enjoy? Well, here's where we've got two game-changing advantages and one big threat that is involved.
All right, so just a quick clarification. Crore is 10 million. What was I thinking of that equaled 100,000?
You said 100,000.
I know. Well, hey, I'm learning here. But I know that India's got sort of different ways of describing that, because I remember when we got to 100,000.
But 10 million.
Oh, maybe 1 lakh.
But is it 10 million US dollars? 10 million what?
10 million.
Rupees?
It just means crore is just a way of saying 10 million.
In general?
Yeah. So there you go. So I think it was.
So it's not 100,000.
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking of the word lakh, which I believe is 100,000 because we got 1 lakh subscribers back in the day. Yeah, 100,000. Okay, so there's where the confusion came in.
What's 1
Sorry,
million?
Guys.
It's interesting.
Let us know down there in the comments.
Interesting they have a word for 10 million.
Yeah.
Opting for this system. The first advantage is that we'll be able to trade with Russia, which is one of our biggest trade partners with a bilateral trade of $13 billion. And considering the condition of Russian trade right now, we could get our goods at a much cheaper cost. Secondly, it's not just Russia, but we could also start trading with other countries that have been sanctioned by the United States, and this includes critical players like Venezuela and Iran. And fun fact over here is that both these countries had already shown interest in using this kind of system. So that's pretty good. Cherry on the cake over here is that this list also includes the one and only United Arab Emirates. So this system will help us a lot in terms of decreasing our dependence on dollars. It will help us a lot in protecting our trade from the whims and fancies of the West. And most importantly, it will ease the pressure on our exchange rates as of now. And lastly, the biggest threat to us is that we are literally challenging the dominance of Uncle Sam's dollars. So obviously, the United States will definitely not be happy about it. So don't be surprised if this move is taken back or if United States threatens to impose sanctions on India. Because mind you, our bilateral trade with US stands at $119.42 billion. So here's where we might face some trouble. This is all that you need to know about the RBI notification, its functioning and its geopolitical implications. And this brings me to the last part, which are the study materials to help you understand this fight of currencies better. Before we move on, let me introduce you to our partners who are the world's first Save Now, Buy Later app, Multiple. Multiple is an antithesis to BNPL. On the Multiple app, you can invest for your plannable future spends, be it your vacation travel, anniversary, jewelry, dream iPhone, or even your insurance premium.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can start with a savings goal for the future spend, say 3 to 12 months in advance, to which you add money every month. Multiple being a SEBI-registered investment advisory,
for an app,
it helps you invest your savings
if you got
in
sort of a big investment or
mutual funds.
Want to save up for a PlayStation or something, you can.
This means that you earn market returns on your money before you spend it. The best part is that Multiple has partnered with many of India's top brands through which you can start earning 5 to 10% of your savings every month from the brands directly. This brand earning,
I guess it's good for them because then they know which people are saving up to buy their products, and maybe there can be a connection made.
For example, if you want to travel to Maldives during the new year, just complete your onboarding, risk profile and basic information, and start with your travel goal by selecting the target amount and duration of saving.
We gotta set our travel goal to India
the right
one of these
allocation
days.
Based on your goal, risk profile, and current market conditions. It also gives you the option to tag a brand, which will give you additional offers from the brand that are over and above any website or app offers when your goal is complete. You have full flexibility to decide if you want to or don't want to purchase with the tag.
I think he'll understand if we.
Then all you have to do is select the payment method for your investments.
Do just a bit of this, but do check out
your
the
smart
sponsor,
saving
guys.
plan for Maldives travel is ready.
Fast forward?
With a market return of anywhere between 5 to 12% IRR
in the
plus
editing
additional
process,
brand benefits up to 20%, that can save 10,000 rupees more as compared to the BNPL method or credit card or even from your bank savings. So if this sounds useful to you, check the special link in the description and download this amazing Made in India Save Now Pay Later app now. Also, there's a special offer of 500 rupees for the Think School community in the description. So don't forget to use the invite code while signing up. Moving on, the first study material that I'm attaching is this wonderful article written by Deepak Shenoy. And here's where he explains this entire system with this sweet little diagram.
English.
So read through this document and you'll get a very good idea about Vostro accounts and the Russia-India transactions. The second thing I'm attaching is a document on the deep technicalities of the SWIFT network. So now that you understand the oversimplified version, you could go deeper and understand the tech behind this system. And thirdly, I'm attaching a few articles on the US sanctions and the information related to SWIFT that's coming straight from their website itself. So read through that and do let me know what you think about in the comment section. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button.
Did learn something.
Happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.
Thank you,
Bye
dear
bye.
friend.
He's just very intelligent and eloquent, and is explaining all the research it would take.
Oh my goodness.
And then the editing, and it's distilled down to like a 13.5 or almost 14-minute video.
And they're pushing out videos all the time.
Packed with all this
I don't know how they do all this great work. Must be a great team.
Well, you better give it a like.
Behind the scenes there. I absolutely will. So that was good. I think he put forward, even if you didn't understand all the technical things, there were some really good reasons for them to switch over. Part of it would be the extra fees involved, the fact that another country's involved, a whole nother system that you can be shut out of based on.
This is like covering your face.
Oh, well, we don't want that, do we? Well, we'll move that down a little bit. So I thought he did a good job at not only giving us sort of like the simple reasons, but certainly if you knew a bit more, there was more there for you to pick up on. I just got the sense that there was too many steps. They could, sort of cut out the middleman. Yeah.
I think maybe the countries beforehand, they just weren't willing to accept rupees. Like Russia, because they're getting sanctions. Now
it was sort
they're
of the
willing
push
to accept the rupee because they wanted the US dollar. But does it really matter if you're getting the equivalent? Why does it matter? I guess because then they have to convert it to.
Yeah, it seemed basically like the systems had been set up and put in place to make that almost the more logical route, to deal with US dollars and then just do all the stuff to transfer different denominations into the dollar. But clearly they're moving away from that. And I can see exactly why they're doing it. It's a better deal for anyone on any side, except that perhaps the Americans or the SWIFT system. They're maybe not liking this so much. But for everybody else involved, it just makes more sense. Less steps, less money spent, more money in your pocket. What else could you want? And it's also, from what he's saying too, going to strengthen the rupee in general. I suspect that as more countries feel comfortable trading with the rupee, it's going to, develop more esteem on the world stage. More people are going to start, trading with the rupee. This is good.
Why is the US dollar so high in worth? Like, what are the actual reasons?
Because they have the most powerful military in the world.
Because
maybe that's part of it.
More people use the US dollar, or
I think there's, it's probably multifaceted. Definitely, their military might have something to do with it. The fact.
How would the military affect the dollar?
Well, because they've got a solid foundation. We don't expect the United States to get knocked off their perch anytime soon. They're entrenched. They're stable. They're, and I imagine there's a whole lot of things that tie into that. I'd be very curious to know, when was that switch between the gold standard and then switching to the American dollar? So I clearly have a lot of history to learn up on.
Did he say that?
He didn't mention that, but it's to my understanding.
Oh, gold.
That
actual gold to US dollar. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, as I understood it back in the day,
they would actually have gold in banks.
Yeah, well, we would compare our currencies to sort of the gold as being the standard,
worth.
And then we changed it to the American dollar being the thing that everything was measured against.
Well, it's interesting. When you get super deep into it, I feel like it kind of becomes somewhat meaningless in a way. For one thing, the worth of gold, who decides? Why is that? It's not worth much to a lot of people. Like, what can you do with gold? Oh, you can wear fancy jewelry.
Well, you can put it in electronics.
The worth of diamonds. I saw this thing where it was like a documentary thing, and it was saying how
it's worth a lot because
the diamond,
the
scam. Yeah, there's just, they have like this main company. I think they control the output of the diamond. They just control the the source and everything, and so they can make it seem like a scarcity, but it's actually not, and it's actually not worth as much as they say. And also, if it's a materialistic thing, it's just like wearing a rock on your finger or that, and it's like, oh my god. But like, eventually, like if we evolve to not care as much about materialistic things, that worth would it could eventually just disappear. Right. It could be like,
if the whole world decided, hey, diamonds aren't a thing anymore, sure.
Well, if your country goes to war, who's gonna care about? You're just caring about basic survival needs. Like, it's worthless to have a rock on you at that point in time. So
now thus far
it can be subjective, the worth of something.
That's right. As far as I know, both diamonds and gold have sort of weathered the storms over the years. I know that diamonds do have some practical applications, and like I said, gold, you find it in electronics. It's something
diamonds
that we require, but
they use them in like dental tools and stuff because it's like this hardest.
And I'm thinking like there's got to be like lasers that use them and stuff like that, but you're right. It's sort of true. It costs a lot because we all agreed that it should cost a lot. So that's kind of an interesting discussion to be had here.
Well, like fool's gold, right? Yeah. Like, who's to say that fool's gold isn't also pretty?
Well, I guess because it's not rare, whereas gold is. Yeah. So there you go. We're
gold
getting
is
into
really fragile too. It's really malleable.
Really malleable.
It's not. They don't really use it in a lot of. I guess they use it in some things besides jewelry, right?
So in summary, what's it good for? We, it looks very nice, and I wish I had more of it in my life. It's fragile though,
like you can't use it in like actual tools that,
Yeah, well, so
that's
from rupees
you can't even have pure gold jewelry because it would just bend, right, and break.
I don't know. I've never had to deal with that before. I've never been in a situation where I've had the money to buy gold jewelry.
Have you seen the YouTubers that are eating gold, like golden pizzas?
Yeah, golden flaked stuff. That always feels weird. Wish you're gonna have a golden shit afterwards. I don't know. Okay. I'd be getting that turd out of there and getting the gold back, quite frankly. I don't want to flush that down the drain. Anyways, I don't know how we got here. If there's anyone still watching,
subscribe, comment. And
we love you a whole lot. This is Internet Rabbit Hole Daily. All right, sign off.
Bye.
Bye, guys.